Welcome to another episode of Gate City Chronicles. I'm Kevin Avard, your host, and today I'm joined with retired professor, correct?
Yes.
John Feick.
Yes.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And now you were a professor for St. Anselm for 44 years.
I spent 44 years there teaching from 1961 until I retired about 8 years ago.
8 years ago. Do you miss it?
Yes and no. I'm involved with enough other things and over at the university that I get into the college once in a while and follow what's happening, but I don't have to be there now.
44 years. And your main topic was biology?
Biology. I started teaching A&P for nurses and graduated to a whole series of other courses. Finished my career 22 years teaching cell and tissue culture, growing networks of brain's neurons in cell culture, and running experiments on them and teaching students how to do that kind of thing.
Oh, interesting. And you've seen a lot of changes. We talked off camera a little bit that you've seen a lot of changes since 1961 in the medical field, the biology field.
Very definitely. When I was in college, DNA was just being first talked about,
Was a theory.
but not taught. By graduate school, it was being taught a little bit. And I would say that 2/3 of modern biology is since I had my education, but I did have to teach it.
Right. That's interesting. So you've been in the medical field somewhat directly, learning about the new trends and...
Yes, I come from a medical family, 3 generations. So, I relate to that. My wife's even a nurse.
And my wife is a mammographer, so we can talk. Today, we're not going to be talking too much about biology, though. We're going to be talking about a new program, basically, that you've helped develop over the last 7, maybe 8 years.
Yes, I already said I ended my career with cell culture, and you can't grow brain cells at home, so what are you going to do if you retire early? I retired at 70. My dad retired at 80. I obviously have to put in 10 years doing something.
Right.
And, well, my research partner hit a tree with his helmet skiing and had a traumatic brain injury. My department chairman had a stroke and lost his ability to use a computer, even though otherwise he seemed pretty intact, capable and competent. And I thought, well, there are a lot of things being done with computers for therapy, but there's no single system that leads a person into the computer, motivates them, and allows them to do everything they would want to do. Make a phone call, answer the phone, turn the lights off, type a letter, do an exercise or quiz for their therapist, contact their family, have a reminder system, let them know what's coming next or that the stove's turned on.
So you're basically helping develop a system on the computer that allows independence. It allows somebody to go to the computer and function.
It lets them use the computer without a coach at their side. Many disabled people have to have someone there to deal with the pop-ups and the changes that happen while they're using the computer and find things. This gives them one screen that always comes back to the home screen. No matter where they go, there's a big icon for home.
Right.
And all of their choices are there on the home screen to use their memory book, their music program, to do exercises that their therapist has asked them to do. That's all there.
So was the reason that you got into this because of your partners or you obviously saw a need?
Yes, and computers fascinated me. I think they fascinate everybody with a technical bent. And it occurred to me that there's an awful lot about computers that are confusing to all of us at all levels. I mean, everybody gets stymied at some point.
Right.
And there should be some sort of a computer program that doesn't require any intuition, particularly for a person who has no intuition, so that they can simply go where they want to go. And our main screen is an attempt to do that, to integrate everything in a way that if a person can read or hear, because the icons speak when you pass the cursor over them, they can find their way, and every screen that comes up in the program has the home icon on it,
Right.
so that they can return to that home navigation page.
Who's working with you on this? Are you doing this solely by yourself?
I started out that way. I started with a student helping me before I retired, the year before I retired. And then I found an artist website designer who did the basic screen of the program. And I worked with a computer programmer in Goffstown who set up the basic program for us. The program exists now, though it's more of a working model than a beta.
Right.
Certainly not ready for market. And as I got more deeply into it, I found Dr. John LaCourse, chairman of the computer engineering department at UNH. And he took an interest in what I was trying to do. We got a small grant over there. Another professor worked with me, and 2 different graduate students have worked on the project.
Oh, and are you looking for more people to get involved and maybe help develop this, or?
At this point, I think I'm looking for funding to do the software smoothing or the final version of the program that's needed to make everything work smoothly in the way I envision it, so that there are no hang-ups, no pop-ups.
Right. Smoothing was a nice way for you to put that. I noticed when you were showing us a little bit of the tutorial before we started, now that you would say something like, well, this should move into this, easily, or something to that effect. Just the little things, but like you said, smoothing. I think that identifies.
I myself get hung up on something on the computer every day, and I have to reason my way through it, think my way through it, think back to things I've done.
Right.
For the person who can't do that, they need a clear path, a very clear path.
Now, this is also helping doctors and therapists in the process of...
That's one of the main ideas, and the reason I think that our program may eventually really see the light of day, because we've set up the program so that the client's time on task, particularly for the client who's recovering at home from his stroke or brain injury, so that time on task gets recorded in a progress report within the program. And any assigned exercises are scored automatically, and the results are posted to that report. And the therapist or doctor can call this up over the internet, HIPAA-protected access, but it makes it essentially a telehealth function.
Wow. It sounds like it has a lot of potential to help some people.
What the physicians and offices and so forth desperately need documentation on those people who are spread out through the community and recovering at home. Are they making progress, and what kind of things can they do and can't they do, and the documentation is just very helpful.
Will they be able to look at real time while somebody's doing that, or just like you said, it'll be
to some extent real time, and we're beginning to incorporate a pager system, a reminder pager system, into this. In fact, I go to the university tomorrow where our graduate student is presenting his version of a first take on the pager. But the pager will be something like a cell phone or like a belt pager that lets the client know when there's a message coming through on the computer from the internet, or when there's a message coming through to him from his own calendar that either he, his family, or his therapist have set up for him. And it could be as simple as you have the stove on, to it's time to take your medications, to call your therapist, they need to talk to you, or mother wants to talk to you. Any of these things could come through the calendar. And that could be real time as well as program, because the person who has access to the calendar can program the calendar. They could also program an instant message.
It's almost like the Jetsons. Oh, it's time for your coffee. It's time for your medicine. Well, really?
Well, yes. We all worry about computers taking over our life, but for the person who can't organize their life, I think it's important. I carry an index card with me, but some people need more than that. They need to be reminded to look at the index card.
Well, day timers were a big seller at one point. It's because people need jarring. They
Yes.
need their memories. It's really interesting. I'm wondering, is it just for paralyzed people? Is it just...
We're trying to look at a wide market. In other words, the person who has had a traumatic brain injury may seem normal in every way, but not be able to get through the confusion, the details of using a computer. They may not have a short-term memory, so they have a very hard time remembering what they just saw, though they remember the past easily. This program will present them with a memory book, which is essentially a family photograph album that they can go through, and you could say jog or train their memory that way. And another intention with the program is that it be motivational. So many exercises that are given to people who are recovering are like first grade workbook exercises.
Yeah.
And our idea is to add to that the family photographs, sports and hobbies, and a music system.
You were watching a little demonstration as we were coming in earlier, how that you were actually doing an actual soundboard for a keyboard and putting in drums, taking out drums, just like a typical music studio would do.
I thought we needed music. For people who have been brain injured one way or another, the music ability is somehow separate from some of the other cognitive functions, so that you have people who may have lost almost everything and yet retain their full music ability. You'll have conductors come to the orchestra and be led to the podium and conduct a symphony and then be led away and don't remember that they did it.
You know, that jars my memory of, there was a movie out not too long ago called The Notebook. I don't know if you've seen that movie.
I don't think I have. I think I need to.
Oh, it was a very good movie, but it's about a man and a woman that they fell in love, and she came down with Alzheimer's. But there's one thing that she never forgot to do, learn was be able to play the piano.
Yes.
And that's a common theme throughout the whole show. But a very good movie.
Well, you say common theme. This is a common occurrence with people who work with people who've had memory loss or brain function loss, that their memory for, their ability for music is retained separately, so that we put a great deal in the program to give the person the ability to work music. They can play their favorite CDs, they can play a keyboard. There's even a child's xylophone that they can ting on if that's their level of musical ability, like mine. But there's also a piano roll synthesizer that would let a person who has real musical ability, one note at a time, using any of the assistive inputs to the computer, touching a pad in the roof of their mouth with their tongue, or a dot on their eyeglasses that the camera sees and moves the cursor. But one note at a time, they'd be able to do a 16-instrument piece of music and publish a CD.
Might take a little bit longer, but just like Beethoven, one note at a time.
Well, Beethoven had the same sort of problem. He was completely deaf towards the end and held a stick in his teeth against the keyboard, assistive technology. And when he played, he got enough bone vibration to hear what he was playing. And it's so that, that a person is in some way handicapped, we don't use that term anymore, or disabled, doesn't
Physically
mean that they're finished.
whatever,
And Beethoven certainly wasn't finished, and we hope that our program opens up music composition to some people who just wouldn't be able to handle it otherwise.
I didn't know that part about Beethoven. I knew that he was deaf and that he struggled through and that they had some type of thing, but I didn't know he had something to feel the vibrations. That's interesting. That just totally amazes me. But he plowed through it.
Yes, and I have a young man that I correspond with now who holds a stick in his teeth, and he has a full sound studio. He's not using my program, but he's worked out other ways that he does do music. And he has a studio that looks like your control room here at the TV studio. And he moves around in his wheelchair. His table has been supported so that he can handle it with his stick.
So everything from composing music, maybe writing a book, or your daily calendar, the stove's on, you got an email, print, send,
telephone,
pay a
we
bill.
hope, and yeah, all of these things controllable from a single screen that's easily navigated, and that's very much the dream.
I've often thought, you know, if I were disabled in a way that I could not move, and my mind was there and cognizant of the fact that I'm in this body and I can't move, I'd need to feed my mind somehow.
Somehow, yes.
I'd have to, and otherwise there would be like a prison. And obviously that you can't, this is a way to help people at least be productive, have an enjoyment in life, have a joy out of accomplishing something. To sit there to be waited on all day and not have the ability to contribute back must be difficult at times.
Well, 8 years ago, there was the movie, the butterfly, the bell jar and the diving bell and the butterfly. A French magazine editor who had locked-in syndrome. He couldn't move anything. He could flutter an eyelid. And working with an assistant who ran her finger over the letterboard, he wrote a bestseller, which later became a movie.
With a blink.
With a blink, blinking one eye, which is all he could do.
Amazing.
And,
amazing what the human spirit can accomplish with.
Well,
if you have somebody there supporting
you think about it, the world's communication for a good span of years was telegraph, and that was a person with one finger hitting a telegraph key. And all those news stories that were sent around the world up almost until World War II were being done that way.
It's hard to imagine.
Hard to imagine today. Yeah, but human capabilities can overcome an awful lot.
That's interesting. So how can people find out more about this and contact you, and if they want to contribute to it, or if there's some funding out there that maybe help you with your research?
We're not on Wikipedia yet, but Google will find us, tbirefocus.com, and find basic material there. I'm fairly sure that we'll start a crowdfunding campaign to try and finish up the software smoothing soon. Mm-hmm. Anybody who's interested in the program, I wish they would get in contact with me.
Okay. And do you have a website?
Yeah, tbirefocus.com will get you there. We also use no, that's all we need.
Okay, and that'll go right to you.
You'll get me a phone number and email, anything you want.
Well,
I'd love to contact anybody who has a real interest in this.
Okay. Well, we appreciate you coming on the show and talking about this. This is fantastic.
I do like talking about it.
It's a great service. I think it's a great idea, and we wish you the greatest success.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
It starts out as a dream, but you get closer to it as you go.
Right. Thank you for watching this segment of Gate City Chronicles, and we hope that this is informative to you. We hope that it may possibly serve you in some way, and we look forward to, if you need these type of services, maybe you have contacts that can help out with the development or the smoothing out, we'd appreciate a contact. Just contact John at your earliest convenience. So
thank you.
Until next week, we appreciate you watching Gate City Chronicles.